Title of the first section today is titled Adding Integers. Integers are any whole numbers, positive or negatives, but do not include decimals or fractions. For the problems for this first section, I'll use two different colors of pen. If you have two colors, you can use two colors, or you can just use one color. The first part will have -3, but instead of -3, what I'll do is I'll draw 3 number tiles, each with a -1 on the inside. And I'm using red to represent the negative numbers. So we have 3 -1 tiles, which will represent the number -3. To that we're going to add -2, but again, instead of -2, I'll put 2 -1 tiles. And then we'll put equals after. So this question, using algebra tiles, or these square blocks, we have 3 -1s. We're adding to that 2 -1s. Since all the tiles are exactly the same, we can add them all up, and there's 5 of them. 5 -1s would represent the number -5 for our answer. So anytime we're adding negative numbers, we can just add the negative numbers and keep the negative on there. For the second question, we'll have +4, which I'll represent by 4 number 1 blocks. And to that we'll add -2, but again I'll use the red pen to represent 2 -1 tiles. So this problem would be 4 plus a -2, and we'll find out the answer. This time the tiles are different. We have a +1 and a -1. When we're adding tiles like this, or positive and negative numbers, you can think of zero pairs or canceling. For example, +1 and -1 would create 0. So we can cancel one +1 and one -1 out. Same thing with another +1 and another -1. These are called zero pairs. 1 plus the -1 would cancel and make 0. So we can cancel those out. And we're left with 2 +1 tiles, which would be +2. So the original question, 4 plus a -2, would be +2. Title of the next section of notes is More Adding Integers. And again, the definition of an integer is any positive or negative number, but does not include decimals or fractions. Two definitions for this section. The first rule that we'll follow is same signs. You add. And the second one, different signs. You subtract. And keep the sign of the bigger number. So instead of using algebra tiles like we did in that last section, we can follow these two rules to add integers. If they're the same sign, if they're both positive or both negative, we'll add those together. And if they're different signs, meaning one's positive and one's negative, we'll subtract the two numbers. That's kind of like canceling out the zero pairs. And we'll look at the bigger number, but we'll ignore the sign, positive or negative, in front of it just look at the number itself, and the bigger number will tell you if it's positive or negative. First problem we'll look at, in parentheses, -6 plus a -3. So if we look at this question, we have a -6 and a -3. Both numbers are negative, so we have these same signs. So we'll add the numbers 6 plus 3, which will be 9. And if the numbers are both negative, then we'll keep the number negative. So the answer would be -9. Second question, in parentheses, -3 plus, in parentheses, -8. Again, looking at the two numbers, we have -3 and -8. Both numbers are negative, so again we have the same sign. If you have two negative numbers, you can add those together, and since they're both negative, the 11 would stay negative, and our answer would be -11. Third question, 9 plus, in parentheses, a -2. This time we have a positive 9 and a -2. So we have different signs, a positive number and a negative number. When we have different signs, we'll subtract the numbers. 9 minus 2 would be 7. And we'll keep the sign of the bigger number. If we have the number 9 and the number 2, 9 is bigger, 9 is positive, means our answer is positive. So we'll have +7. And last question for the section, -7 plus, in parentheses, +5. Again, look at the two numbers. We have a negative number and a positive number. Different signs. Whenever we have different signs, you'll subtract. You can ignore the negative when you subtract. We'll have 7, and we'll take away 5. 7 minus 5 would be 2. And again, to determine if it's positive or -2, look back at your numbers. Whichever number is bigger, ignoring the negative. 7 is bigger than 5. The sign in front of the bigger number tells you that's -2.